What's up, guys? It's your boy Lify here. I wanted to come at you with a review of Remnant Subject 2923. Just an overall review and rating of this DLC for Remnant from the Ashes. As some of you may know, I love Remnant from the Ashes. I love the series. I love all the DLCs in general. I love the gameplay loop. I love being able to play with friends. So I was really excited about this DLC and what it could bring to this, bring to the table for this genre and genre type of games, right? Some people call it Dark Souls with guns, if you will, right? And yeah, so I just wanted to highlight a couple things. This DLC did drop on the 20th of August, 2020. This is the second DLC for Remnant from the Ashes, and they took a little spin compared to the first DLC. I feel like they kind of took the criticism and feedback from Swamps of Corsus and ran with it. So to just give you an outline of how great or how different this DLC is, first you start the game, and granted, this DLC is focused more on campaign. So first you come in, you talk to your guy. I don't want to try to spoil too much, but kind of give you a rundown of the process and how it works. You go to like an area that looks like a mini Earth, if you will. The only downfall of this part when starting the new DLC is some of the enemies do look like a reskin, right? And that is a turnoff for some people. Then you show up in this new, fresh, mysterious area called Ward Prime, and in this area, it's like, just think of a bigger Ward 13. It's fancier, but it's a huge puzzle. And the route's there, and there's all this stuff going on, and you gotta explore, find your way. Of course it wouldn't be Remnant without finding a couple keys and key cards. My only feedback on this part is it was a puzzle for the sake of being a puzzle. It wasn't a puzzle for the sake of like, oh, this is fun, this is rewarding, it's gonna get me to the next step. I gotta do this, I gotta do A to do B to do C to get to E and then get rewarded for F, right? It was a little over the top for being a puzzle. Like, I understand the lore behind it and a little bit of the exploration in Ward Prime, but it was a little bit over the top for a puzzle. I do think puzzles in these kind of games are refreshing, but I want to be able to do like a short puzzle, go kill some stuff, come back to a little puzzle. This was all just like one big segment of the DLC where you don't really have to return to do the puzzle. So neither here nor there. Then after that, you go to this new area or new zone called Remnant. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a snow area. I'm sure you guys have seen it in the trailers. There is a total of 6 new bosses, I believe, in this area. There's, of course, a bunch of side dungeons, secrets to find, rings, trinkets, mods, weapons, the whole gambit. So you do get that again, which is great. Of course, there's new traits. There's a total of 2 new armor sets, like full-blown sets. And one really cool thing is there is a new element in the game, frost or frozen. If you look at your armors, you'll see it. There's a new like tooltip. It's of course blue frozen element. So some of the guns will deal the frost, elemental effect, where you can apply frostbite and then eventually frozen, which is cool to play with. I am excited to do some more builds with that. And on that note, before the DLC dropped on the 20th of August, there was a pre-patch DLC where they reworked basically every armor in the game. They reworked some of the rings and amulets and weapons and mods and added new traits. So there was a pre-patch to the DLC that set the DLC up for success. And that pre-patch itself was like a mini DLC. I mean, it was super impressive to see a company rework and give fresh light to existing armors that people might not have used. So it created all new build sets. And even furthermore to that, with the DLC and the pre-patch DLC, you can just feel, and this is great, right? Just being able to feel the new builds and creativity that comes with stuff. There's nothing better than having a feeling in a game like, oh, I got this item, right? Not only did I get rewarded for this item, but now, I have all these thoughts and ideas running through my head about what build I can make with this item. And oh yeah, 15 minutes ago, I got this other item. Does it pair with this one? So you can just see and feel, especially for the existing players, and even the newer players, you can feel your own sense of creativity and wanting to create builds. And that was kind of missing from the game. I mean, it was there, don't get me wrong. It was definitely there in Remnant, and that was one of the best parts of the game. The whole looter shooter, procedurally generated areas, and having to rerun the areas. So the replayability of creating new builds and exciting builds and seeing how they work, right? And what bosses are they good against? What zones are they good against, right? Because sometimes weak spot damage is better in some zones or areas and enemies than other ones, right? So that part in and of itself is amazing. So the DLC, Subject 2923, comes in at $9.99 US dollars. So right at $10 USD. I'm sure this varies in all parts of the world. I think this is very reasonable. Swamps of Corsus was the same price, and I think it still is at this time. I wouldn't be surprised if they bundle this in the near future. Swamps of Corsus did have mixed reviews on Steam, and rightfully so. I can see why. However, for me, how I judge my money spent and my DLCs that I play is how much time do I get for that value. So the value versus time ratio. And Swamps of Corsus, that was there. So for that $10, you definitely get more than 10 hours of gameplay, simply for the survival mode, right? And I thought that was great. So with this DLC, there is no new modes per se. So they kind of steered away from that, and they went more back to the base game of, okay, here's a new campaign you can roll. Here is a new zone. We start you in a mini Earth. Then you go to Ward Prime. Then you go to Resum, which is the snow area. Then, of course, it's its own final campaign boss, like there was, the Dreamer and Nightmare in the base game. So all of that is great. However, the story, I think we beat it in just about 4 hours or under 4 hours. Granted, we were really geared. We've played the game a lot. We ran it through on normal. Yeah, we ran it through on normal, I believe. So, and we did that by design. The first playthrough, we wanted it to be on normal, and then we'll go back through, do the alternate kills and the alternate zones and adventure mode on hard and stuff like that. And that's typically how, me and the community, we do play. First run through, it's manageable. Then we just ramp it up for the sake of being difficult and trying to challenge. Because the channel is kind of built on roguelike games, and I definitely think Remnant fits that category. And there's not a problem with that. It was great. It was great. Campaign, even though it's only about 3 or 4 hours, it was still enjoyable for the $10. So to put it in perspective, right? Swamps of Corsus added survival mode, which one run in survival can take hours if you're decent or good at it, right? Whereas you could beat the entire campaign in one survival run, essentially, if you're comparing apples to apples, of Subject 2923 versus Swamps of Corsus. So for the whole time versus value aspect, I would say that this DLC kind of falls short. If you don't really have an interest running back through the game and acquiring this gun and testing out this build and ramping up the difficulty. Oh, I want to fight this boss on a harder, instead of doing on normal, I want to go on hard, right? Then you might be a tad bit disappointed. That being said, there is amazing environment elements to this game. The animations are great. The boss design is 5-10 times better than what it was in the base game. Some of the bosses, you can tell they put in the time and effort. They treated it more like a Dark Souls game, right? And there's alternate kills, and then you fight the rat on top of the dog, and he comes in, and there's different animations, and depending on how you fight him, it evolves into this different fight. Seeing that, phenomenal. And you got to give credit where credit is due. There's so much more flexibility with this DLC, and it also pairs really well with the first Swamps of Corsus DLC. So if you go back and play a survival run, you do have access to these new zones of Subject 2923. Gosh, saying those numbers and words back to back, it starts getting like confusing in your head. It's crazy. But it's great. So, if you go back and run a survival run, you might end up in Resum. You might get these new guns, these new mods. So it just even expanded on survival runs in general. And if you have any type of appreciation or love for roguelites and just jumping in and doing a run, this game falls even more so into that category. If you are here for strictly a story, you want to see what happens, you want some dialogue, some cutscenes, some cinematics, I would steer away from this. You're not going to get your value's worth out of it. There is more story than there ever has been for Remnant. So you can keep that in mind if you make your decision and you're not sure about purchasing it. Maybe you are one of those folks who enjoyed the base game, but you didn't really care for the story. However, you could see yourself playing it again, even back through the base game with a bad story. Then this DLC could be for you. However, if you played the base game, you just finished the story and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna shelve this game, I'm done. I don't care about getting an alternate weapon and playing with friends and hard difficulty and all that. You're gonna feel the same off this campaign and DLC. They tried. You could tell they tried to give in a little bit more to all parties involved. It's great. You can, have the love and appreciation for Gunfire Games. I think they're doing a phenomenal job. They did come out and say this was their last DLC for Remnant from the Ashes. However, on their more recent live stream on Twitch, they did, I say this with a grain of salt, they did hint at more Remnant games. Whether that evolves to Remnant 2, we don't know. But I think they do have stuff in store for us, and I think them saying that this was the last was them hinting at it as well. People asked the question, will there ever be a Remnant 2? They said, you'll have to stay tuned. So they didn't say no, right? So you can use your imagination on that. So just to highlight again and summarize some pros of this DLC: builds, build diversity, boss fights, environmental effects. The campaign is a step up from what we are used to seeing in Remnant from the Ashes. Is the campaign a 10 out of 10? Absolutely not. Is it more of a 6 or 7 out of 10 compared to a 4 or 5 out of 10? Absolutely yes. However, all of the boss fights between the gear, the trinkets, rings, weapons, mods, armors, all of that is definitely a couple extra points in this right direction. Not that it was ever bad, but it is definitely still better. It's great. So some of the cons, that I felt as I played through a game, I really try to go off my feelings and how I feel about a game. Do I go to bed and I wake up and I want to play it again? I got that feeling with this game. How long will it last? I don't know. But one con I will tell you is when we were doing the Ward Prime, I was done. I was ready to be done. I was ready, not quit the game, but I was ready to be like, all right, now I gotta go open this door. I gotta do this. I'm good on that. I'm ready to kill some stuff, right? And it really made no sense. And you even had to work a little bit harder to get a weapon out of it in the Prime. So whatever, it is what it is. The DLC comes in at $10. Swamps of Corsus comes in at $10. For what you get out there in the gaming market, $10 for a DLC, you can't beat it. Definitely worth a purchase. if I really had to give this a rating, you know, scale out of 0 out of 10 to 10 out of 10, 10 being the best, I would probably give this somewhere around a 7 or an 8, probably pushing more so on the 8 side. Swamps of Corsus, I would give it more of like a 6 out of 10. And this DLC, I'd give it more of an 8 out of 10. I don't think, as far as time spent of what the majority of people are going to play, I think this one is going to fall a little bit short. I don't know how many hours, and I still think it's kind of to be determined of what my my folks in my community are going to be playing. Right now, they're enjoying it. I've had nothing but great feedback on Twitch. However, I don't think it's going to hold up like long term in that sense. But it was necessary to the game and the evolution of the game. I do wish that they wouldn't have said that there's not going to be any more. I do think there is room to do more DLCs. I'm not, you know, I understand resources, and maybe they're going to announce a Remnant 2 or prequel really soon. Which I apologize, guys. My dude is just sitting here as I'm voicing over. Must have had to go use the restroom or something. But I do think they could have continued to evolve this game and add to it. I mean, there's just so much creativity and room for growth that it's mind-blowing. I mean, they have such an amazing foundation for this game to be just out of this world. And I actually consider this to be one of like the top games that I've ever played in the past 1 to 2 years, period. Actually, when was this game even released? 2019? I don't know, but I've gone back and forth to this game so many times just because of the gunplay and the abilities and the evolution of it is so much fun. And the multiplayer and playing with your friends is so much fun. They got the scaling down, the difficulty down. There's not very many bugs and glitches in this DLC. However, I have gotten some pretty negative feedback from PS4 players about the final boss of the campaign of Subject 2923, as if it is not even playable or beatable. So keep that in mind. Huge red flag. I'm sure they're going to fix it probably by the time you're even listening to this video, if you're listening to it. But I've had PS4 players come to me asking me for advice that their game just will crash. It won't even get through the fight. And if it even tries, it is 2 frames per second. I mean, completely unplayable. So that's awful. Kind of worrisome, because you would imagine that the testing and the QC would be there for just even the last boss fight of the story. Pretty alarming. Keep that in mind. Do your research on that piece. At the end of the day, I would recommend this. Lify's going to play this again. 8 out of 10 if I had to give it a rating. Yeah, and that's it. I'll sum it up. It's kind of went a little bit over, but I appreciate you guys. Follow, like, subscribe. Hit me up on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Lify. We stream every day. We're going to be making some more build videos. Come over. Say hi. I appreciate everybody. Thank you guys very much. You all have a good rest of your day or evening. Stay safe.